A lot of games come out and they only do so due to a development team developing the game. Duh. However, every company needs a start. Nintendo doesn't just come into existence making Mario and Zelda, you know, but then some developers kind of just hit it off on the first go. Maybe they don't peak with their first release, but right away, they put out their first game that manages to be a well-received title that helps establish the studio. And that's what I'm counting down today. Now, the way I'm ranking these is by how good the games are, how impressive it is that it is the first game from the studio, the impact of the game, and whatever other factors that may be unique to the game, you know. I am specifically including games made by full studios as opposed to just a solo dev. So you won't be seeing Undertale, Stardew Valley, or Cave Story in this video, since those were made by just one guy. Although that can be a list of its own if you want in the future. And that also applies to Minecraft. I feel the need to mention that one in particular because it was kind of made by one guy, Notch, but kind of made by a full development studio for their first time, but I kind of feel like I should just stick with games made by a full studio. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into this. Hi guys, MiiKcast here, counting down the top 10 games made by first-time developers. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will restart you.
I wanted to give to you, in the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10 in the Bible.
id Software, best known for making games like the original Doom and Wolfenstein, and they are still around today, still making Doom games. Naturally though, you would think it'd be a game like Wolfenstein or Doom, but believe it or not, neither of those were id Software's first games. Instead, when id Software was known as Ideas from the Deep, their very first game was Commander Keen in Invasion of the Vorticons. I'm just gonna refer to it as Commander Keen. Sure, this game might not have much name recognition today, but this still ended up being a very big hit for id Software and its publisher at the time, Apogee. Invasion of the Vorticons in particular was a 3-part episodic game of side-scrolling adventures, and the game was also praised for how good it looked for a PC game at the time, some even saying it has a, quote, Nintendo feel, and it even got to the point where Apogee made a deal with Nintendo to port the game over to the NES, although nothing came of that. One thing is certain though, if we didn't have the success of Commander Keen, we maybe wouldn't have Doom or Wolfenstein, which means we probably wouldn't have first-person shooters. So in a weird way, Commander Keen is more culturally important than you may realize. Now we have a team that is a little bit tricky, but CD Projekt Red. We all know them for like the Witcher games and Cyberpunk, but what was their first game? Well, don't think too hard, cause it was the first Witcher game. Now I say CD Projekt Red is a bit trickier because they did kind of exist before putting out The Witcher, as they would mostly work on localization in Poland, but as for a full-on new game release, The Witcher was the first. Although it may not be anywhere near as popular as The Witcher 3, or even as popular as the second game for that matter, The Witcher 1 still managed to go over well with critics and players, scoring an 81 on Metacritic and getting 8s and 8.5s out of 10s from outlets like IGN and GameSpot. The internet nowadays will tell you that that's a bad score, but don't listen to them. That's really good, especially for a studio's first game. Most people praise the game for its combat, but also the decisions you make in the game that affect the game's story. Again, the original Witcher game might not be as well remembered as the sequels that followed, especially the third one, or Cyberpunk, at least after they fixed it, but it did one thing, and that's establish CD Projekt Red. Tim Schafer. If you ask me to name 10 people who make games like how you can name like movie directors, he wouldn't be the first person I'd name, but definitely included in the 10. He mainly got his way into the gaming industry by being part of LucasArts, as he worked on many of their games such as Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, the action game, what a title, Maniac Mansion, and The Secret of Monkey Island, and I think the sequel as well. However, he would eventually leave the company to form his own studio, Double Fine, best known for Psychonauts, and their first game? Psychonauts. Weirdly enough, you've most likely at least heard of this game by now, but for a while it kind of flew under the radar, It was actually a hidden gem at the time because it was a 3D platformer when that genre was kind of starting to die out. However, that doesn't make Psychonauts any less of a banger, as it's aesthetically distinct from most of its contemporaries, has dark and mature themes and subject matter, and very unique mechanics that also help set Psychonauts apart from other games in its genre. When you read into the development of Psychonauts, it's actually quite wild, and even crazier when you read into the development of its sequel and see just how many similarities there are. But one thing is certain, Psychonauts did a hell of a job at launching Double Fine.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
Hollow Knight Silksong. There was so much hype surrounding this game that in and of itself kinda took on a life of its own. But seeing just how much hype there was around Silksong, that should speak volumes to its predecessor, as the only other game that the developer Team Cherry has made is, well, they actually haven't made another game. Hollow Knight was their very first. I will admit something, you guys. I never really got into Hollow Knight myself. Maybe I just missed the boat on it, and by the time I checked it out, I don't know, but I cannot deny how well made it is, nor can I deny its staying power. As for all these years, I've seen many people streaming the game as if it just came out. Some will even tell you it's so good, it ruined Metroidvanias for them. I wouldn't say that myself, but I cannot deny that Hollow Knight blends 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania elements and Souls-like elements very well together. I'm actually recording this all before I have had a chance to properly try Silksong. I played a little bit so far, but I do plan on playing more, so maybe it's better, and from what I heard, it sounds like it's better. But looking at the first Hollow Knight, not bad for Team Cherry's debut. Not bad at all.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Woo! We have another indie game on the list, and this one is a personal favorite of mine, and an OG with Team Meat's very own Super Meat Boy. Now obviously, when you have a team called Team Meat, of course their first game is Super Meat Boy. And when you look at the rest of their catalog, it's just Super Meat Boy. Like, it's Super Meat Boy, like, spin-offs or sequels. So it's not like this launched Team Meat into a premier indie studio that makes a whole bunch of different games, but it is fairly impressive as a first outing. There is so much charm to Super Meat Boy, so much personality, so much rage-inducing elements, but in a way where you feel like you fucked up, as opposed to it being the game's fault. And the game still holds up extremely well today. Sure, Super Meat Boy might not actually be seen as a Team Meat project as much as it is associated with its lead designer, Edmund McMillan, who would then go on to make The Binding of Isaac, but Super Meat Boy is still a stellar outing for any studio, but impressive for a first.
Chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Believe it or not, Sega did actually exist before Sonic. In fact, Sonic was not their first game. It wasn't even their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth attempt at establishing a mascot. So the original Sonic the Hedgehog was not the debut title for Sega, but it was for Sonic Team. Yeah, sort of like how Team Meat is obviously known for Super Meat Boy, Sonic Team is obviously known for Sonic the Hedgehog. But unlike Team Meat, Sonic Team would actually go on to develop many non-Sonic titles such as Rystar, Nights into Dreams, and Billy Hatcher. But obviously, it all began with the original Sonic the Hedgehog for Sega Genesis, which may not hold up that well today, but its cultural significance cannot be denied. It started the console war, something that is more of a cringe fanboy war today, but back then, it was legitimately cool and endearing. Not to mention, being able to rival Mario, and by extension Nintendo, was just not something that you saw often back then. Sure, the original Sonic the Hedgehog might even be the game on here that is least worth going back to, but its cultural impact puts it in the top 5. So I didn't really intend for this list to be made up of a lot of indie games, but it just so happens that if you're a first-time developer, there's a good chance you're also an indie dev. I mean, we just looked at, Hollow Knight, as that was Team Cherry's first game, but then in that same year, Studio MDHR put out their very first, and as of now, only game, Cuphead. I remember Cuphead took a while to come out. Perhaps it was because of how the game was made, specifically everything being 100% hand-drawn, but it made the final product all the more impressive. It does a fantastic job taking an old Disney aesthetic and using it for a 2D tough-as-nails run-and-gun platformer, and it was praised for that. Cuphead is a very challenging yet rewarding and endearing game that looks to be inspired by just pure inspiration. And maybe this game shouldn't be on the list, as Microsoft is known to be involved with this game, but not really. They helped market the game and had it as a timed exclusive, but Studio MDHR completely worked on this game themselves and also self-published it, and you couldn't have asked for a better result. It's been a while since Cuphead released, but I cannot wait to see what Studio MDHR has next, whenever that may be. Look guys, another indie game! But this one, if not the one, definitely one of them, but it helped put indie games on the map and made it so that they would be taken a little more seriously. And that is Shovel Knight. But it's not only one of the indie games that put its contemporaries on the map, it was one hell of a debut for Yacht Club Games, the game's publisher and developer. Shovel Knight, or how it's now known, Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope, shouldn't work. It sounds really silly on paper. You play as a knight who uses not a sword, not a shield, not an axe, lance, flail, nothing you would expect a knight to use, but a shovel. And in a game that plays like a mix of DuckTales, a mix of Mega Man, and some other NES games. This should not work, but it did, and then some, as Shovel Knight, albeit to a lesser extent, became a bit of a household name in video games to the point where the series and the character have kind of transcended indies. Like, as an indie game, if your character appears in any significant way in a Smash Bros. Game, not even as a playable character, just like the fact that he's an assist trophy, I think that means you've made it. Shovel Knight managed to receive support for years, with expansion after expansion, and speaking of Smash Bros, even a platform fighting game expansion, only recently announced that a sequel is on the way, and Shovel Knight itself has enough content to keep you busy for a while. And all this, need I remind you, was the first game by Yacht Club Games.
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
Valve is weirdly one of the most respected yet frustrating companies in gaming today. Respected because they have made so many iconic games that have truly stood the test of time. Frustrating because they don't know how to do it more than twice. However, what would you say is Valve's most iconic game? Probably Half-Life, right? Half-Life 2 more likely, but Half-Life as an IP is their most iconic. So it makes sense that Half-Life is also their first game. While it was more so Half-Life 2, Half-Life is known for really revolutionizing the first-person shooter. Sure, I said similar things about Doom, and Halo did wonders for the genre as well, and then Call of Duty of course did as well. But in between those, Half-Life really changed the game. It gave us a world to get immersed in. Characters like Gordon Freeman, who is a rather low-key, iconic video game mascot, and gave us other characters too. Half-Life, upon release, received rave reviews. Metacritic scored it with a 96 out of 100 and received near perfect to perfect scores from review outlets like IGN, GameSpot, Next Generation, and Computer Gaming World. All for Valve's first game. Valve did an impossible task by debuting this strong, but they've managed to rarely ever miss. Now if we can just get Half-Life 3. Normally I wouldn't even make that joke, but in more recent years, the rumor is that it's apparently real and more likely than we might have thought, so make it happen.
I'm Luigi, number 1.
We fast forward to today. Gaming budgets are overinflated, AAA companies are not taking enough risks, game prices are only going up, and it's leading to people becoming more disassociated with video games. So when an ex-Ubisoft developer forms a team of people largely inexperienced, and the core development team ends up consisting of 30-ish people to make a turn-based RPG, you get Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And somehow, calling it a masterpiece is a fucking understatement. By all metrics, Expedition 33 shouldn't have worked. It's by a very small team, has a very small budget. The soundtrack was made by a guy that the team found on a random French music forum. The story and dialogue was written by someone they found on Reddit who wanted to be a VA and just wrote stories as a side hobby. The character animations were done as a side hustle. It had an art director that had never worked on a game before, while still managing to not only succeed in them, but nearly perfect in all those areas. And that's not even mentioning the gameplay. I think it perfects the turn-based RPG by adding dodging and parrying, which drew inspiration from Sekiro. And my god, that story. The premise is enough to get you interested, but holy shit, what happens the more you play and the more you find out about just everything going on. Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, truly gave me an experience I don't think I have ever had or will ever have again playing a video game. It is a game truly so good, I don't think words can describe it. And all that for a game that was made by not only a first-time dev, but a dev made up of largely inexperienced people. Without question, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 comes in at number 1. So that's my list of games made by first-time developers. You might have gotten a little sneak peek a few months early for how I'm gonna sound talking about Expedition 33 when I do my favorite games of the year. But what do you guys think? Is there any games I missed out? I think there's actually probably enough of these like very impactful and strong debuts for developers for another top 10 list if you guys want to see that. But what do you guys think? You know, let me know any games that maybe you would have included. Anyways, be sure to comment, subscribe, or I will restart you.